Uh-oh, look at us. We've got there we go. Hey, Rodney.
Good
How are you?
afternoon.
What do you know? I missed you on Tuesday.
Yeah, you had a
Yeah,
really big list, a listing appointment, a appraiser appointment. What was it?
it was an inspector for a
That's right.
purchase, and it was one of those ones that the way this works is when you're working with a buyer, one of the contingencies for anybody that doesn't know, there's several contingencies: there's financial contingency, inspection contingency, and an appraisal. And in this case, it was we on Tuesday at 1 o'clock we had a financial. I'm sorry, an inspection, so we could get through our inspection contingency, and it was a, like a huge house, and so the inspection took like 3 hours. So
Wow. How'd it go? Customer happy with the inspection?
it's a beautiful house. It's a beautiful house. It's in Brentwood. I'll be non-specific because we haven't closed yet, but it's close to the Governor's Club, so you know that area.
Hmm.
It's a beautiful house, wonderful. The sellers are wonderful. The agent I was working with, I'll give her a shout out, Kelly Davenport, real nice. She's real good. Um, but just sometimes even when you're live streaming, I want to be here with you guys and with Rodney, but this is one of those things that I had to show up. So, and I'm pleased to do it, happy to do it. So,
Oh, 100%.
what's new
Um,
with you? Anything big happened this week that I missed?
no, nothing big at all. Just more of the same. Rates are kind of holding steady, a little bit under what they were, at the highest level. Um,
Right.
School's back in our area up here in Tennessee.
Right.
So it's typically it picks up, starts picking up a little bit after everybody gets kids in school and
Yep.
vacations over with.
Yep.
So
Yep.
seeing a little bit of a pickup, but too early to tell. What kind of numbers or percentages.
I think that's probably school is a major factor when you see activity go way up under normal circumstances just before August, because people are trying to get in their house and settled before school gets fired up, And I've seen that um, more than once. I'm gonna pop something open here.
Right.
Looking good. Oh, we look so good. For
Yeah, I
anybody
see
that's
it.
geeky,
I see it
for
shuts
anybody
down during
that's
vacation time.
what's that now, Rodney? Sorry about
I
that.
said it'll shut down during vacation time. It seems to shut down
Yep.
for a
Yep.
minute or slow down and then pick back up when school gets back in.
Yeah, but hey, I'm glad. I know a lot of parents are relieved. Sorry, kids.
That's right.
Mom can go back to day drinking. That wasn't funny. That was not PC. I'm sorry about that. Just kidding. Wish I could edit that. So, hey, Angie, what do you know? Good afternoon from us. Good morning to you. Good to see you. Good to
Hey,
see
Angie.
you. So Rodney, you just so everybody knows, I'm going to show you something here. This is what Rodney and I we kind of go onto a site like this, and we look at topics that are that are current and important for people. And so we were talking about what we should be going through today, and Rodney wanted to touch base on separating fact from fiction in terms of real estate. Isn't that right, Rodney? Is that what you're talking about?
100%. Yes.
Okay.
Um, we, yeah, I'll jump right in. Talking about the myths, home prices are going to fall. And my point is that I'm seeing so much on the internet right now. It says, "Oh, you're crazy for getting a real estate agent to buy a house and all this stuff," and and I'm in it, and I deal with people who don't have real estate agents, and I deal with people who do have real estate agents, and I always believe you need a great real estate agent in your area to help you. And this is one right here. Home prices are going to fall because if somebody from out of our area come in and is wanting to buy in our area, in certain pockets of our area, right?
Right.
So you go to hot spot in the middle of Williamson County where we're sitting at, and it's going to be extremely difficult, or you're going to be disappointed if you think home prices are falling right now, right? There is more inventory, and you may get a seller concession or a closing cost being paid or something like that. But we are not seeing home prices fall in really good areas. Matter of fact, in most areas, they are not falling. So home prices are going to fall. I think your real estate agent there is going to tell you, say, hey, this pocket is a hot pocket. There's only one Manhattan, right? There's only one Manhattan or East Borough, New York, or wherever. So location is just like anywhere else. It's going to be important for your real estate agent to inform you how that community or how that small market is doing versus a national or a statewide percentage. Myth 2, the housing market is going to crash. It says here the nation that credit lending in America will collapse as it did from 2005 to 2008 couldn't be more incorrect, as we have not had a credit boom in the period between 2008 and 2022. It was much easier to get a mortgage back in that time, and it was much easier to get a mortgage if you didn't qualify. Even if you didn't qualify for a mortgage, you still had an opportunity to get one. That hasn't been the case. So I don't see a housing crash anywhere. Are we seeing some kind of correction? We may be in one right now to where they're not skyrocketing in values, but I do not see, like I just read, I don't see a crash. It says bottom line here, no matter what you're hearing about the housing market, trust the experts and partner with a local real estate professional. When you do, you'll have the knowledge authority on your side that knows the ins and outs of the market, including current trends, historical context, and much more. So that's my point with that, is that your local real estate agent is going to understand that market and understand that, and help you, guide you, what kind of offer you're making and that sort of thing.
Right. And I think for anybody that's watching, what Rodney's talking about is we're not trying to convince you to do anything. It's just in a market like this, it's good to have somebody that's been through it before or something similar to help guide you through the process, because there are a ton of unknowns in this market. And what, oddly enough for me, I've been through something similar. Now, it's not a crash. I don't believe for a second there's a crash, and I could go through the mechanics of it someday. Maybe we will. Maybe we'll go through it today. I don't know. But I am familiar with what's changed in the negotiations because I want to add something. Can I add something here, Rodney?
Well, yeah, please.
When we're talking, as you're going through this, which I thought was just excellent, home prices are going to fall. That's a myth. What people are seeing, and they're seeing a ton of this stuff on video, on YouTube, all kinds of things where they're talking about the market crash, and that's a clickable title. I mean, that's what that is. I got to do something. Hey, Google, turn on the sign. Bink. Thank you.
Now we're live.
That's right. It's like, with the donut thing, the sign's on, so the donuts are hot, right? Krispy Kreme, I think, is what it is. um, but a lot of the videos that are be done, it's clickbaity because it's doomsday, just like Angie was saying. You know, it's scary stuff, and people click on it because they're afraid or whatever. Here's the deal: when it comes to pricing and what they're talking about, prices dropping, what they're actually seeing is we're going from a season where a home seller could list a property, not for anything they want, but they could go quite high and still sell. They could, there's a range. There's always going to be, just like Dave Ramsey said, an overpriced home in any market won't sell. But the range got expanded during this last period of time. So people were overpaying for houses, maybe. I mean, however you want to look at it, they're paying a lot, premium. They're paying premium. Then we move into this season where interest rates go up, buyers pull back, sellers start to feel desperate because they feel like the gravy train has left town, which it has in a lot of places. They're still getting good money for their house. I don't want to say that they're not, but it's just not that buyers aren't just doing any, they're not overpaying, covering appraisal gaps, not asking for inspection. Those days are gone. I mean, they are gone a couple of months ago. Now, what's happening is that agents, and it's okay, and sellers alike are tuned to that hot market from the last couple of years. And so when they list a property, they go back and here's a mistake I think that they're making. Of course, I'm not at their computer with them, but my current broker told me this, and he's absolutely right. If you do comps for a house today and you go back 90 days, you're 70 days out of time because the market's changed so much. You know, using those numbers from back then, they really just don't apply now. A couple of weeks, maybe, probably, I think it'd be all right. A couple of weeks, a month at the maximum. So anyway, so sellers, and I get pumped up about this. So sellers and agents alike are still in that mindset. And when they list a little bit hot, a little high. And so what the videos are talking about that you see almost every day is prices are dropping, prices are crashing. And that's what they're trying to stuff into that crashing terminology. And that's not right. People are overlisting properties because that's what they were used to. But now they got to lower the price to entice the buyer currently. And that's all that's happening. That's because I've never seen, I think I showed it once on on my email. I get Zillow notifications when prices drop. I'm getting like 30, 40 of them every week, if not more. It might be more. I just didn't want to exaggerate. So when we're talking about prices dropping, I'll stop it at this. All that's happened is people are mistakenly believing they can still get premium dollars, and they got to lower the price to get buyers to activate. We just put a contract on a house. It last couple of days we did not pay asking. We did not, by a long shot. So I'm proof of what do they say? The proof of the pudding is in the eating. I'm telling you that you can buy houses for less than ask. Plus, we got inspections. We're good to go. Sorry, I'm off the soapbox.
No, what on that house was it? How long was the before you made your offer and got it accepted? How long was the house on the market?
That's a great question. It was on 5 days, but it had been on a period of time with a different MLS number.
And a higher price?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. And then it got lowered, and that's when we got interested, because that's what I'm saying, lower the price a little bit to entice people. I mean, there's just, we're all done overpaying. Even if you can afford it, we're done with that,
Good.
So that's what happened. The price got reduced and was 5 days, and we pulled the trigger because there was a lot of interest, and we timed it perfectly to get in there. So anyway, that's a great question.
Yeah, and to the myth number 2, the housing market is in a correction. They term that as, a correction is sustained decline in a value of a market index or the price of an individual asset. 10 to 20% generally from its peak. So that's a correction. And I think, like Angie said up there, it was only a few percentage points that you're seeing on houses now, if that makes sense. It's
Yeah.
nowhere near a 10 or 20%. We're not seeing $1 million house go for 900 or 800.
No.
Um,
No.
you're actually just getting to look at the $1 million house and negotiate a price, somewhere around the list price. I mean, around whatever value you think you're at.
Right.
The sellers are considering, repairs and things like that now where, they wouldn't fix anything a couple of months ago.
Well, the big thing now these days, I'm seeing it everywhere, is a lot of sellers are being taught to offer buy down money for
Hmm.
closing, not closing costs, but uh, buy down funds. What's the phrase on that?
That's that's actually what they're calling it. Some people are hey, the seller will pay buy downs,
Yeah.
and we actually yesterday in my sales meeting, I was talking to my loan officers, and I just told them, I'm like, we are seeing this a bunch, but I'm recommending that whenever we see it, try to get the word in the contract changed to buy down, closing cost, or prepaids, something, because not everybody will like spending that money on a buy down.
Right. Right.
There's temporary buy downs. There's a way you can purchase your interest rate and buy your rate down permanently with points.
Right.
And then you can also use it, but it may be best if you use that money for your closing cost. Because somebody says, well, I'll use $7,000 to buy my rate down, but it only saved $40 a month in my payment or whatever. They're like, man, I'd rather have the 7,000 cash. And we just look at the money, because I didn't like people being penciled in or blocked in. They could only use that for the buy down with the way it was
Right.
written.
Yeah.
And so we're just trying to get it changed for us so we can give them more options to use that money, because they may not want to use that buy down money when they see what the cost of it is. They can get better use of it somewhere else.
Right. Yeah, I was always taught back in the day that when, where there's seller concessions and seller to pay, and then you give like a laundry list of stuff to give people options. Just like you
Right.
said, closing costs, whatever, prepaids, taxes, whatever. You go through all a long list, but to include buy down rate would probably be smart,
Yes.
or would that be included in a closing cost? I don't know. Makes me sound like an idiot because I don't know.
It could be, it could be either. Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
it definitely, it's got to come from somewhere. So,
So we got Angie's got a good question here, Rodney. I'm sure you can see it. I'm gonna add this. See if we can answer this thing. It's a little bit long. Sorry. Let me get the text a little smaller. Let me do that. Bear with me. Pink. Oh, much better. If the seller's list a little under appraisal, sorry. Whoops. Sorry. The seller's list a little under appraisal. Are they still getting multiple offers to make the selling price higher? That's kind of backwards, if I can say.
well, in my opinion, if I answer her question, if somebody comes in and lists it for undervalue, I think it would go. I think somebody would offer more than list if, let's say, Andy's ran comps on it, and he says, hey Rodney, that I think this person listed this for 500,000, but really you see these comps right here, this thing's worth 530. You know, I think it would entice in a good area around here. I see what you're saying about it, it's backwards, but if she's asking that question like it's phrased, I think it would, but that's just totally, an opinion.
And I think that Rodney's right. So Angie, what threw me a curve was including the word appraisal, because a lot of times people they'll get ready to list their home, and some people will go as far as to have an appraisal done. That doesn't mean necessarily anything. I mean, it's just that's one guy's opinion. Until you have a contract and the person that, if it's for a lender, the lenders have an appraisal done, that's when that number matters. The one, you could pull an appraisal from 2 weeks and go say it was worth 40,000 more, means nothing to the transaction. But if what you're asking, and what Rodney he caught quicker than I did, I'm sensitive to the word appraisal. If you're asking, what he said is, if you price a little bit under the competition, because remember, listing a house, being for sale, that price, that's theory. Sold is fact. And so when you do comps, you're looking at the facts of what properties like yours sold. And then if you list a little bit under what they're selling for, then you will encourage more offers, and it'll typically go over what you expected. That's how you get multiple offers. Broke that I had for 12 years. He always said, you got to have a little better house for a little lower price. That's the secret to winning every time, being the first one sold on the block. So,
And that's almost that's in any good market, isn't it, Andy? Where you could, if you priced your house right, or just a hair below, you're kind of creating your own frenzy on it, versus the typical, every homeowner wants to get as much as they can for the house, and they're probably hiring the realtor that says they can get them the most for that house, but it may not be the best, right? They may start out too high, and now you're on MLS, and then when they lower it, here's where the market thinks, all the prices are going down. Not really, because you started too high.
Correct.
And you didn't get that initial interest and that initial wave of people looking at this house because it hit the market. And to me, that's where your real estate agent pays their dividends, is getting you in that sweet spot right there.
Yeah, and there's a term for that. What you're talking about, Rodney, is when you're priced too high. And I understand. Believe me, I understand wanting to run hot, because it's been that way for a couple of years. But if you price just a skosh too high, and then all of a sudden you're trying to lower it to beat everybody else, that's called chasing the market to the bottom. And that's not where you want to be, because all of a sudden, in order to win, you got to make a big jump to beat everybody else in terms of interest. It's treacherous, it's treacherous. And, something, when you get thinking about it, in the old days, before the market was crazy hot, I would teach people, sellers, to guard against pricing too high for all the things we've been talking about. Because back in the old days, it would take a couple of weeks to get an offer, right? Or whatever. Mm-hmm. And after a period of time, people start asking this question. Well, what's wrong with it? Been on the market 3 weeks. What's wrong with it? Well, then the market got hot. Nobody asks that question anymore.
Yeah.
Now we've come back, and when we were looking at this house, my buyer said, it's been on the market 5 days. I wonder what's wrong with it. We're back. We're back to that. So
man,
if you're a buyer or seller, or even a new agent, you got to talk to somebody that's, I'm not trying to be a smart guy, but this is the way it was, and this is easy peasy compared to back then. So, wow.
Our operations manager here, Andy, I've heard her say this a million times when the people start out too high, and you just kind of touched on it. She always says that she feels like soon as that list, the second price or third price comes out on that listing, is that automatically triggers everybody to kind of say, well, what's wrong with that house?
Yeah.
And instead of just kind of looking at it, well, they probably just started too high. It's like, what's wrong with it, versus, and adding that stigma on it, versus it's really just a good real estate agent probably predicted that they was going to start out there and then lower it,
Yeah.
you know.
Yep. That's right. And then what's going to happen? You mark my words. See if you don't see this happening here in the next few months. Houses aren't going to sell as fast as what sellers expected because, again, accustomed to the heat from the last couple of years, they're going to start firing agent, blaming the agents, and you're
Yeah,
going to see the same house get listed at a new price or the same price with another agent. I mean, I've seen all of that.
yeah.
I've seen it. And I understand, but it's like my current broker, man. It's anything more than 2 weeks is just fantasy. That was yesteryear. So you must be seeing more. Are you seeing more offers come in that have that buy down allowance in there?
We're not seeing. Um, we're just seeing a lot of it being advertised.
Got it. Okay.
We're
Okay.
just seeing
I
a
bet
lot
you.
of it with the people coming up with it like it's an instant knee jerk reaction
Yeah.
to spend several $1,000s to try to save your rate because the rates are so high. I mean, that's what it is.
Yeah.
It's the market is not used to a high rate.
Right.
Sellers are not used to waiting 38 seconds and not seeing 54 offers.
Yeah.
So this is the response to that. Which is a good response. I like it. I like anything creative. I like anything that draw. But like I said, what we're trying to do is just get it. And what if you're a potential buyer watching this and you see that, understand that have your loan officer show you what else that money can do. Because the temporary buy down will save you a lot of money for 1 year. Okay. And then it's going to save you a little bit of money for the second year. If it,
I
let's
did.
say
I
it's
really
a
didn't
2-1
understand.
buy down.
Is that something you could explain and not completely baffle me?
Yeah. Yeah. A two, let's call it a 2-1 buy down. That's what I'm seeing most. And what that is, if your rate starts out at if your rate is 5% today, uh, your first year mortgage, your first year payment would be based on a 3% rate. So that's where the two comes from. It's 2% lower than your first rate. And then year two, you're going to pay 12 months and it's going to be 4%. So that's where the one comes down. It's a 2-1 buy down, 2% for the first year, 1% on the second year.
Oh.
And what happens, all it is, and the difference in the monthly payment is put into an escrow account and subsidize that payment.
Oh, really?
That's it. That's it. It's nothing fancy. So, but the cost of it is probably I'm gonna just estimate about 2.25% total of the loan amount. So if it's a $500,000 loan
No,
amount,
that's 10, 12, $13,000.
right, we're over $10,000. So although you get a really good benefit that first year, 2% below, and you get a good benefit that second year, it's gone after that. Some people talk about, well, our rates could lower and you could refi in between. I don't really see that happening. But what I do see is saying you'd probably be better off if it paid your closing cost, if you used that 10,000 for your closing cost. Or you could even do a combination of you could buy your interest rate down permanently, which sometimes I'm not a fan of that either. Sometimes the cost isn't worth that. A lot of times it isn't. I don't typically like to see that. And then you could use a balance of that for closing cost as well. So that's what I'm saying is just instead of saying, okay, I'm going to use that $10,000 for that one product, I'm going to look at all the options and see which one fits that customer the best. And then
Yeah.
they get to choose where they want to use it at.
Well, and see, that's really good. That's really good. Um, that's what, if anybody that's ever worked with me or ever does choose to, I'm telling you, I'm not a lender. I don't pretend to be. And if you ask me lending questions, my answer is going to be call Rodney. It really is, because if it's stuff like that, it'd be irresponsible to act like I am a lender or act like one just to, I'm not going to do it. So that's really good to know. That's really good, especially in this market, because now it's all about. Now it's all about options for buyers. If you want to try to make it work, where they're looking for
Right.
ways to puzzle things together.
Our customers, have been on the internet for the last 5 years, searching what their mortgage costs and been plugging in a 2 or a 3%
Right.
rate. When you start plugging in a 4, 5, and 6,
It's a different
it's
world.
different.
Different world. Now Angie was asking, and this is what we in the business call a crystal ball question here. Do you think the rates will go back down to what they were, or will it take years? Here's my
Yeah,
answer.
I think it's going to go back down, and I have no clue when.
Right.
Um, I will say 20 years ago, I predicted that we'll never be below 7%. So I'm going to throw that out there when I'm giving my rate predictions.
Yeah.
It was literally probably, no, it was probably in 98. Um, it got down to like 7%. It hit 7%. And I was like, told one of my best friends, I was like, man, you're never going to see 7% again. This is the best it's ever going to business. Think I know everything. And, and subsequently, it hasn't been higher than 7% since I made that statement. So I'm a genius.
So go ahead and make that prediction. Maybe you can, you know,
I'm gonna say rates are gonna come down, and I say we're gonna see 2.5s again at some point in time. But I'm gonna say it's we're a few years away from it.
yeah, I think so too. Because you have to. I've learned a lot about um, recession and inflation and what the market forces. And when people are talking about mortgage rates, understand that the housing is a big part of the U.S. economy. It's a huge, huge chunk of it. And so they're going to see the housing market as having a great impact on inflation. Part of the reason with inflation being what it is, it's fuel, food, and housing was included in that.
Hmm.
That's how those inflation numbers come along. So if we're not going in, if we start cooling off a little bit too much, I'm never going to say we're going to go into a recession. But if it cools off too much, they'll lower the rates so people can start borrowing money again, pump up the volume. Then the GDP, the production value for the country starts to go up. So it's an interesting balancing act. And recession is nothing more than the sum total of everybody's work effort put together in one big old basket. The GDP is gross domestic, so it's in the United States versus, I think that's the way it is, versus national. Yeah, and that's part of when you see the mortgage rates going up and down. That's all that's happening is it's balancing investors going from mortgage-backed securities to the 10-year Treasury note. And that's just everybody's trying to find a deal. It's just supply and demand. It's awesome. It's awesome.
Yeah, we've been artificially so low. The rates have been artificially so low
Yeah.
to the point where the government what holds, is it 40% of 48% of bonds or something like that at that
Something like
time? They just kept buying and buying and buying, and so our rates were just artificially held down for so long. It was awesome. I mean, everybody on the face of the planet had an opportunity to get a mortgage rate that was unbelievable.
yeah.
And I think they did. It's just our business is a cycle, man. It's going to go up and down, and we're just in a swing. We're just on the roller coaster.
Well,
Uh,
when you're giving money away, people are going to spend it. And when they spend it en masse, inflation is the natural outgrowth of that. I can see that now. And so that's all they're trying to do is trim it back. And when's the next call? Next call's in a week or so, I think. I don't know. But we'll have to see. But all things being equal, we're in pretty good shape. I mean, I remember a time when mortgage rates were 17%. You know, there was some pretty big numbers out there versus there was. I'm big on Reddit when I read. I don't know if I know a lot of people are familiar with Reddit, and if you look at the real estate Reddit subreddit, somebody had posted in there says, "I got my house loan for under 5." Yes, they were
Mhm.
celebrating for under
Yeah.
5. So how soon we forget, you know?
Yeah.
It's
Hey,
always
I may have did Angie's loan. Look at that. Did you see her comment down there?
oh no.
She bought a house in '98 at 7%. So
See, how about that? So do you think buyers will
uh,
just do,
Angie, do you remember if your loan officer told you that was the best rate you're ever going to see in your life? Maybe there's two of us out there.
so
She also asked,
do you think buyers will just buy a smaller house that they can afford or wait? They're buying smaller houses.
yeah, I think they're doing both too. I think
Yeah.
they're having to find something that's in their budget, which is smaller, um, and people are waiting too. People read these headlines in the news, and if you do read the headlines, are thinking that our whole economy is collapsing. But I just think the real estate markets all around the country in these really good areas like we're in here are still going to be. I don't think their prices are going backwards. I think you're going to still. I just don't see them declining. Is what
Yeah,
I'm
I
trying
don't
to say.
either. When people talk about prices going down, I think that the only responsible way to phrase that, and we'll get off the topic, but it's got to be year over year. You know, month over month, that doesn't mean much. But if house, it's not going to go back to last year's prices. So when prices, that's what they actually mean. I believe is when they say when prices drop, it's year over year. And so
Yeah.
anything other than that, just a correction, like Rodney was saying. So let's see. It's been pretty good. Well, maybe we're pretty good. Did you want to talk? Did you want to tackle one of these others, or just call it a day? We did pretty good on that.
I'm good. Whatever you're up for.
Well, it says I would touch on one thing, and I think I've done this before because we're in the middle of it. It's too much of a topic to get into. I was going to touch on what recession means for home prices, but the fact of the matter is, prices are going to continue overall to increase, but just at a slower pace. That's it. Some people would call us in a stagflation, but I think you have to be officially in a recession for it to be called a stagflation. Isn't that right? I think probably so.
I
Go
don't
ahead.
know. I actually, when I seen that definition of a market correction, 10 to 20%, that's a huge correction. That's a huge number for a correction, in my opinion. So a lot of it is just, the terminology of this stuff is, I mean, we're in, I feel like we're in a correction, but the correction so far for me is like we just talked about is you actually get to look at the house. There's not 50 offers and you don't have to pay overprice. So it, the, I just hated that part. I just didn't like that part. So that's the correction for me.
Yeah, and you're absolutely right. And I think things are gonna stabilize. There's more houses coming on the market. There's fewer buyers, so there's less heat on that, which is a natural and it's a good thing. It's a good thing. The uh, the absorption rate, the market's it's like a 3 month market now. So they're saying I could look it up, but 3 months, 5 to 6 is what they call a balanced market when there's no undue pressure on the pricing outside of buyers and sellers doing their thing.
Yeah.
5 to 6 months is what that is. Anything less than that is going to be seller's market. Anything more than that is going to be a buyer's market, And so at 3 months closing in on, and we're talking about days on market going up, it's healthy. We want that. We want that to have a little more time on the market. We want to have those options for people. It says here that I don't know if you noticed this. The U.S. homeownership rate is growing. So what does that tell you? The people are buying houses. That's a good thing. That's a good thing.
That is a good thing.
Yeah, because this
Did
is where I think.
they break that down? Did they break that down into any kind of statistics?
Let's look.
I know we may be running over time, but
Nah,
I heard a statistic that like 50 58% of the first time home buyer market in the future will be Spanish speaking. 58% of the first time home buyer market will be Spanish speaking.
oh, no kidding. No kidding. Well,
That's an astronomical number it just struck me.
yeah. Here's what it is for the last 4 quarters. Can you see that? Okay. So quarter three, 2021, 65% were homeowners. Quarter four, 21, 65.5. Went down just a skosh. First quarter, 2022, and then second quarter of 22 went to 65.8. So what's nice is these are small micro movements, and that's healthy. I wouldn't want to see any skyrocketing stuff.
So is that saying 35% of our country does not own a home?
Means that 35% are renting. Yeah, that's what that means. And rents, did you hear about that new flow? Have you heard about that? That new rent thing?
Hmm.
Yeah, the guy that did WeWork.
Oh, yes, I've heard he's trying to, he's raised a bunch of several million for his new company. Yeah.
Yeah, which is going to be apartments consistent across the country, just like WeWork was. That's
Well,
what that's
he's,
about.
I know he's got land. I know he's bought land in Nashville.
Right here in Nashville. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
called Flow, and I think it's so that you can go from one place to another and know what to expect. Franchise really.
That guy was, he was unique. Did you ever watch any of that stuff on CNBC on him?
Yeah. No, I tried to watch some of that movie. I can't. It was a series. I can't remember what it was. Um, I can't remember what it was, but I couldn't handle it. It was too chaotic. But so no, that's interesting. Yeah, home ownership rates are up. Or yeah, the percentage of people buying houses is good and owning. So hey, I think probably good for today. If you're okay with that, Rodney.
I'm good, man.
Okay.
Yeah,
Well,
here's before we go, look at Angie's comment here about rents. That's a crazy. When we talk about buying home, one of the biggest reasons I think people need to buy is just to. This is it. They need people need to protect themselves from this. How crazy this rent's gotten.
yeah. Well, and the fact is that your rent's going to be more next year. I don't, doesn't much matter who you are. Your rent's going to be more next year, and you can expect that consistently. So
Yeah.
at least with a mortgage, you get a number and you can count on it other than taxes pretty consistently from then on. Anyway, Angie, you have a good day too. Rodney, thanks for your time today. I enjoyed that. Sorry if I went laser there for a little while. I don't know
We're
what
good,
happened.
man. No worries. Enjoy it as always. Good to hear from Angie too.
Yeah, good to hear from her. And I'll see you next Tuesday back on schedule.
Sounds like a winner, bud.
Okay, man. See you soon.
All right. See y'all.